G'day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is the coach here, and we are talking Blades of Khorne with the icebreaker himself, the man who is all about the bloodletting. It is Tyler MacDonald. How are you, good sir? All the way out of Queensland, rubbing in the Maroons to us. Although New South Wales has finally gotten a win. But g'day, how are you, sir?
Not bad, yourself?
Good, man, good. It's 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock in the morning, we've restarted because we had that failed attempt, but you are an absolute master when it comes to playing Blades of Khorne. I couldn't think of, well, I could have thought of someone on equal status. Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd give the internet a rest from Matt, but you are a very, very, very talented Khorne player. I thought we could get a bit of a different opinion talking about Blades of Khorne and understanding how we can play them in the current meta.
Lovely. I've been super excited to do this, so yeah, let's do it.
No, man, that's good. So I guess for people who don't know who you are, who is Tyler?
Tyler. I don't know. Tyler, in a nutshell, pretty much Tyler's the crankiest man in AOS, to tell you the honest truth. But other than that, I love playing Khorne. I love my icebreak, and I just love to roll dice.
Yeah, we just found out this man drinks more milk than that's currently in my fridge right now on a daily basis. But what drew you to Khorne? What drew you to playing Blades of Khorne and all that good stuff?
Well, honestly, I picked up a secondhand army cheap, but going from there, I just love their kill everything playstyle. Like playing Khorne, I don't look at, you don't consider objectives to turn 2 or 3. Before that, you're just trying to feel like there's much damage as possible on your opponent, just to keep coming home. Like we haven't got good saves, we die pretty easily, so it's basically about getting shit in front of them so they can't hurt what you want to hurt, and then just trying to wipe board as hard as possible.
It's literally what it says on the book. You just do, you just run forward, you just kill your enemy.
It's all about the blood and the skulls.
You let the blood flow, win, lose, or draw. Khorne is always happy because blood for the blood god, skulls for the throne of Khorne.
Exactly. And as I said, we hit hard, but we die even harder. So, yeah, everyone's happy in the end.
No, that's awesome. But what drew you to Warhammer in general? Like, was it Age of Sigmar? Was it this particular first second-hand army? Or what drew you to the actual game itself?
The models, really. Like, I was painting for a while, 40K. I'm at the age now where all my mates started having kids. I lost my golf partners. I'm like, what am I going to do? So started painting model tanks, so IG from 40K. Found there was a game to go involved with these awesome tanks I've just played and getting involved. Wasn't a big fan of the 40K sort of scene. It's a little bit salty at times and, just the rule changes consistently. It's hard to keep up. And then the Brishammer boys down at my local doing the Brishammer tournament and just started getting it from there and loved it ever since.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's good to have you, and the Brishammer boys are gentlemen and scholars nonetheless. We just had Matt Gammy on the show literally 24 hours ago and had a whole bunch of the Queensland crew on there. So much love to all the Queenslanders. And if you listen to this on the podcast, Tyler is decked out in his national team or state team, or you guys are basically a nation upon yourselves.
We are our own nation.
Basically,
I don't class myself as an Aussie. I'm a Queenslander.
Basically, if it was up to Wes, he'd close the borders, and you guys would have it'd be Queensland and then the rest of Australia. But I've always been fascinated by Khorne. Khorne's just a wonderful army. It's just something that I don't know. There's just something about like this demonic, bestial. It does what it says in the books. There's very little tricks that it relies on, but the mastery of playing the game with Khorne is something different because it's not. You can't just run forward and just kill things. That's not how it works.
I remember Khorne, it's letting them it's positioning with Khorne more than anything. It's going to kill, but it's getting it in the right position to kill it at the right time, really.
Yeah, it's not like iDraws where you run in. It's like a big sledgehammer. Like, funnily enough, because you don't have the best armor saves in the world, it's actually more like applying a scalpel and actually finding the right spots to apply pressure, which is probably a misconception. You think you just like run Khorne up and then hope for the best. It's not the case.
No, not at all. And that's where I think a lot of people have a lot of problems, just running up massive blocks of stuff. Screenings, I think, is the major thing with Khorne. That's why we got 70-point Blood Reapers. Just to, again, letting them hit what you want them to hit until you can get a Bloodthirster or some Skull Reapers into them.
So overall, like, what are the strengths of the battle tome? So when you picked up the second edition, well, it's actually kind of like the third edition. You've had like 3 books if you include the Bloodbound book. Like, what's the strength of Khorne when you get to play with them and when you get to list build?
The allegiance abilities, like our tribes or whatever you want to call them, like that is the number one thing that jumps out of the book. That just shows our strengths. Things like the Reaper's Vengeance, where you can get Bloodthirsters going twice. Even Gore-Tide, where you can get your Blood Warriors and Reavers running and charging with a 6-inch run. You know, just as a built-in mechanic for your whole army that you can just pick and add to your army. I think that's the number one strength of this book. It's the first thing that jumped out at me. Other than that, the Blood Tithe.
Yeah.
Like they're our 2 biggest... Sorry?
No, please continue.
I was just saying they're our 2 biggest difference in everything else, but our strength sort of thing, where no one else has sort of got what we got there. Like, no, you haven't got too many other factions where every one of their big monsters can just make themselves go twice. You know, and it's the same thing as like the Gore-Tide, just running and charging, auto 6. You can get those guys in your face turn 1.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing as well with Blood Tie is, you know, probably unlike any other army, is that you get rewarded for your opponent's behavior. So if you die, you get Blood Tie. If your opponent dies, they get Blood Tie. Unlike something like Slaanesh, where you're generating those depravity points from your heroes when they're killing things or they're doing wounds. Or actually Zench kind of gets stuff with magic casting, but it's great, you know, regardless if you're losing or they're losing, you're being rewarded through Blood Tie.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually good as a Khorne player when you're losing your own units, and it doesn't hurt because you're counting those Blood Tithes. You know, when you just lost 2 or 3 units in a phase, but knowing now you've got a free move in their hero phase. And I think that's the biggest thing too. The fact that you can activate Blood Tithe abilities in your opponent's hero phase or at the start of your opponent's hero phase. It's a game changer. Like, being able to attack before they do anything in their turn is just brutal. Or having like a Bloodthirster sitting there out in the open, and all of a sudden you can move it behind your lines before they get to do anything. You know, just little things like that for 3 and 4 Blood Tithes. Shutting down magic for 2 Blood Tithes, just that's it. You know, those things are just game changing.
Yeah, there's been plenty of times where an opponent chooses Blood Tithe to interrupt one of my plans. Like, right, cool. I'm preparing for my turn. I've got this idea in mind. I want to try to do X, Y, and Z. And then the start of that, like, boom, there's a Bloodthirster in front of you. I'm like, oh. Or I've been trying to think about that spell, and like I've baited I'm ready for that spell. They're like, no, it's not happening. You're like, man. So it's cool that you go able to
spells and stuff.
No, it's just cool that you can respond to your opponent if you bank up those Blood Tie early and you're smart. And I think that's one of the things I'd love to hear from you, Tyler, as well, is some of the ideas around Blood Tie. I think that can be quite confusing. Do you save them all for the big thing? Do you kind of spend all of them early to kind of get some activity? Like, what's that strategy? I might bring over the Blood Tie as well for anyone who's not familiar with the Blood Tie. So you get a whole bunch of cool things, right? So, at the start of, so basically the rules are, for anyone who doesn't know what Blood Tie are. So what's going to happen is you receive 1 Blood Tie point each time a unit is destroyed. So that's you or your opponent. So it does reward you if you're running small blocks of, 5-man or 10-man units and they die. At the same time, it's going to reward you for killing your opponent or your opponent dying in general. At the start of the hero phase, you can use 1 or more Blood Tie to receive 1 reward from the Blood Tie rewards each below. Immediately carry out the effects, blah, 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 blah. So basically, there's a whole bunch of things here. You can receive a command point. You can choose this reward immediately after a wizard casts a spell. Basically that spell is not successful. Like, there's just a whole bunch of good stuff here when you look at the Blood Tie. I mean, I could read it. I could read all of it if you want, but it's not story time with the coach. I thought I might save you from all of the different particular parts. But are there any particular? Go on.
Well, I think the biggest thing with Blood Tithe is that's tied in with our summoning as well. So it does make it quite hard sometimes to decide when to use it too early, or, and I've done it many times, using it too late, holding on for 8 Blood Tithe to get a Bloodthirster, ignoring, your table, which makes your army strong, and then just getting rolled, you know what I mean? Because you haven't shut down a spell and someone's teleported onto an objective, and there you go, because you got 7 Blood Tithe, just hanging on for a Bloodthirster, which in the end of the day costs you the game. But it is quite hard. Like, I think 2 Blood Tithes gets you 5 Bloodletters, which is awesome for screening. When you're just running up the board and just dumping, you can almost do that almost every turn. Like, I used to run Blood Sacrifice on one of my priests, which on the 4-up rerollable near the shrine, I got a Blood Tithe point each turn for free. So just generating 1 free each turn, just harvesting them, you could get screens out on the board. I think it's Flesh Hounds, 5 Flesh Hounds for 3, I think it is.
5 Flesh.
Yeah, for 3. Like, that's unbelievable value, you know what I mean? By turn 2, you can have 5 of them down. And I think that's the hard part with those abilities. Like, you almost need a plan in place for those abilities, trying to get them, knowing when you're going to get them. Like I said, like 3 Blood Tithe, being able to move in your opponent's phase. That's awesome for smashing into a unit with Bloodthirster, hanging him out there. If they pick up the next turn, if you don't double turn them, you can then move that back behind your lines, and you've got another turn or so with him. You're not just sacrificing him, kamikazing him out there. But if you don't have that plan, or then at the end of that phase, you've only got 2, you've just sacrificed him, sort of thing. So I think using the abilities, you really need a plan in place and have an idea of where you're going to be with them, know what you're going to generate, and just try and use them for that. But summoning alone on them, it is a very easy mechanic for summoning, but you can waste. If you've got 7 Blood Tithe and you use an ability for 3 Blood Tithe, you're back to 0.
And that's the interesting part as well, right? Because if you summon with your Blood Ties, you bring on, and they're quite generous, right? You can bring on 5 Bloodletters for 2 points. You can bring on 10 Bloodletters for 4 points. Bring on the 5 Flesh Hounds for 3 points. A Skull Cannon or 3 Blood Crushers for 5 points. You've got a Bloodthirster of the various different builds at 8 points, which is really neat. But then the minute you summon something on the table, your points resets back to 0. So I think what you just said was critical, right? You got to have a plan. If you're building up and you're like, cool, I've got 6 points, but I'm going to summon 5 or 10 Bloodletters, those additional points are now gone and you're back to 0. Exactly.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, it's just know what you're going to do. Go in as a heavy summoning army if you're going with your Blood Tithe. Not worry too much about your abilities. If they're there to use them if you need them at the time. But just go in using Blood Tithe to summon as many units on the board, because that is our problem. We don't have, most of our demon units, or all of them, are 5-up saves except for the big guys. Even our mortals, most of them are 4-up saves, at best, or 6-up for Reavers. So our screens are dying quick. So that's, just summoning small units on consistently. You can just add 5 more units to your army. It doesn't matter what they are. They're 5 more speed bumps, or go on for the other thing. And that's how I was doing quite well at the beginning of the year with the 4 Bloodthirsters. I didn't have a lot of buff units. Like, I didn't run a Secrator. I didn't run a few, things. 1 Priest was all I was running, and he had killing Blood Sacrifice, not Killing Frenzy in that. So these buff units weren't there to buff my Bloodthirsters. I was using the Blood Tithe table to do that, trying to get 4 Blood Tithes, so I can go in with my Bloodthirsters, attack twice in my sequence, and know I'm going to get a 3rd attack before they get to do anything. And just using, add Blood Tithes to basically buff your army. And that was the plan I was sort of running at.
What's really cool as well is what we've kind of had is got, not only do you guys get the rules from the Blades of Khorne book, but we've also had a bit of a boost when it comes to the Wrath of the Everchosen as well. So now even more, and I think, as a man of bloodthirster taste, you must be very excited by being able to have even more Bloodthirsters in the Bloodthirster build.
Well, the Everchosen one, I think it's cool. I think it would be maybe not the funnest to play against your mates, but I don't think it is as competitive as the Blades of Khorne, say the Reapers, the Reapers Vengeance Battalion. where you can only run 4 Bloodthirsters, but every one of those Thirsters can attack twice. So the run and charge is awesome, getting up and across the board. But again, competitive-wise, not having screens that will be there, it'll be a very short, brutal game. But yeah, as just a bit of fun goes, I think getting 5 Bloodthirsters on the board, throwing that against 5 Stonehorns or something like that, that will be awesome. 5 Terrorgeists, that's just something I think would be great fun to play with your mates. But come competitive-wise, I just think there's far better options out there.
Yeah, it'll be challenging to obtain and hold objectives with most of your points in a single model, and you don't get the Beast Claw rated kind of benefits of having one model equals 10 to 20. So
exactly, or the 5 up after save, or just those little things like 5 Thirsters running around the board. It said looks awesome running across the board, but after turn 1, you got anyone that's going to countercharge you. You're only going to have 1 or 2 left by the end of that phase. So that turn sort of thing, you can sort of, in a competitive scene.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about here, by the way, team, so there was a supplement that was released in January called Wrath of the Everchosen. It is the second coming of Archaon. It has a whole bunch of cool rules for various builds, not just Khorne, but it has some stuff for Nurgle. It has some stuff for, the various builds in Slaves to Darkness as well. And there are 2. So basically what it does is it's extended your allegiance abilities. So you've got here the Reapers of Vengeance, you've got the Blood Lords, you've got the Gore-Tide, and then you've got the Skull Fiend tribe, trying to read it in the squinty screen. So you've got those 4 that you can choose from, these sub-allegiances that you can kind of customize and build your force out even greater. But then on top of that, you've now got an extra 2 ones. You've got the Flayed, which is going to give you some benefits, and then you've got the Baleful Lords, which again give you a different set of rules. So no matter how you want to build your Khorne force, you've got some options to really maximize them on the table.
I think the Flayed, there's a little bit of legs in that as a heavy mortals list. They had a few, I had a look over them. Again, I don't play heavy mortals a lot with Khorne, but just the buffs for the priests and stuff like that, I think there might be something to look at in there.
Yeah, so the command trait is you can reroll prayer rolls of 1 for friendly Flayed priests wholly within 8 of the general. You get +2. The artifact gives you +2 to your charge rolls. And then there's some other stuff that you kind of get. So like the abilities. So at the end of the combat phase, if the enemy hero or monster is slain by attacks made by friendly Flayed mortals, in that phase, you can add 1 to the save roll. So again, there's some whole bunch of stuff there. So that's obviously going down towards, as you mentioned, a mortal build, probably benefiting you with things like Slaughter Priests and Blood Secretors. So if you're kind of going down that route, you've now got more options.
Yeah, I was thinking more of that one too. Like the reroll for the priests, we get that built in with our shrine, but that just gives a little bit more mobility. Maybe Forest Brass Stampede or something like that. That's where I could look at maybe using that.
And then, you look at things like the Baleful Lords. One of the things you get is a command trait. So you add 1 to the charge roll for friendly Baleful Lord Bloodthirsters within 8 of the general. So this is kind of where it's stacking and, really maximizing that charge roll for the 3, 4, 5, 6.
And they can run and charge too, I believe, as well.
Is that
I think that's just their tribe ability.
You get the... Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. Sorry, I was looking at the second paragraph. Yeah, friendly Baleful Lord Bloodthirsters can run and charge. And, yeah, you can add 1 additional Bloodthirster. And you can pick 1 friendly Baleful Lord Bloodthirster, and then basically it's treated as if it hasn't suffered any wounds. So you're kind of hitting with max damage.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You could run 5 Thirsters across the board with a run of 6. You're getting +1 on that. And then, the Insensate Rage Bloodthirsters build in command abilities to reroll charges. So you could get quite a few Bloodthirsters into your opponent pretty quickly, but I couldn't see it being more than a 2 or 3 round game.
Yeah, you'll win or lose.
Yeah, exactly.
If you weren't going to summon, so I guess first off what you talked about here is, have a plan for summoning, have some things that you kind of want to get to the table early, whether it's, you want to get some unbinds from the Flesh Hounds, if you want to get more blood letters for screens, if you want to be able to think about there's a whole bunch of, have a strategy, right? I think what you've said, long story short, the Bloodthirster is an interesting challenge. It's 8 points. It's going to take you a while to get there. By that stage, if you've been solely focused on getting that Bloodthirster, you may have found real opportunities missed because you weren't thinking about the unbind, you weren't thinking about screens, you weren't thinking about, claiming an objective because you've just been solely focused on getting a Bloodthirster.
Exactly. It actually cost me at Ipswich GT against Mick from the failed charge. Exactly that happened, and I had 7 blood tithe. I wanted to get another Bloodthirster just to roll over him. He pulled off hand of Gork or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Was sitting there for like a little grin on his face, waiting for me just to blow my blood tithe and shut down the spell. I had the blinkers on, and teleported over and won the game.
Yeah, and on the flip side, you could have brought down some, 5, 10 blood letters, and you could have done that as well, because that's where I found most people have done that to me, is bringing on those little 5 or 10 man blocks, not just to screen, but also to kind of claim objectives or to protect objectives, and while the rest of the force moves forward.
Exactly. And then, as I said, like doing that, especially at a time like that, you learn that lesson, and I don't think I've summoned many Bloodthirsters, to tell you the honest truth. When I was at Sydney, it was 2.5K. I think I summoned 1 Bloodthirster over the 5 games. You're trying to waste those blood tithes as much as possible. You want to use them. You want to use Khorne. Khorne wants to hit when it's strong. You don't want to be waiting until late game when half your army's gone and things just aren't effective anymore.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of playing Matt Campbell, winner of CanCon last year. And he won it with Khorne, and I played him a number of times, and very rarely does he always bring on Bloodthirster, at least against me. It's more about those flesh hounds. It's more about those blood letters, and bringing on those small pieces during the game to kind of keep putting pressure on, or kind of trying to claim the objectives. Exactly.
As I said, like Khorne's all about only allowing your opponent to do what they can do, you know what I mean? And then you dominating the board. And with all those small units coming on consistently, they're going to die, but that's a turn for you to kill 5 blood letters. It's cost 2 points, but that's shut down a whole unit for a whole turn. And that's the way you got to look at the Khorne, is just shutting things down with just throwing them blood tithes, basically, till you can do what you can do with your weapons.
Yeah, it's really the applied pressure. It's I see Khorne really like a test of strength, and you just keep pushing pressure, and eventually the opponent collapses if you're able to apply the appropriate weight.
Exactly.
Before we kind of move on to your particular list, we've talked a lot about the summoned units. Talked about some of the things you might want to consider. Again, have a plan. Don't always focus on the Bloodthirster. Think about some things like, there's obviously, there's different things for different reasons. So we won't kind of go into the models, but is there any particular abilities here that kind of draw your attention, or when you're looking at an opponent, you're thinking about more than others? Again, every opponent's going to be different. Every army's going to be different, but are there ones that you use more than others?
The 2 biggest ones, I think, are for 3 and 4 blood tithe. 3, I don't know what it's called. I can't see that properly. But
Murder Lust. So pick one friendly Khorne unit. That unit can make a normal move. If it's within 12 of an enemy model, you can make a normal move or attempt to charge.
That there is just unbelievable. One, just moving units up. Like, again, I used a lot of Bloodthirsters, so moving them up, being able to then move them out of the way before the opponent's turn, being able to get a double move in your turn, so you can just strike at something at the back of the board or somewhere where your opponent just didn't even expect you to be able to get. The charge one, having something within 4 or 5 inches of your opponent and charging them at the beginning of their turn. That ties that unit up. They can't go anywhere. They can't kill it till their turn's over, and that can just shut people down for a whole turn. Like if you do that to a front screen, you can shut everything down, and people are put on the spot because it's their turn. This has just happened, and they don't know how to, they've got to work it out there and then. That one there, I think, for 3 points is just unbelievable. And same as the one below it for 4 points, where you get to actually fight at the start of the hero phase. And that's in your opponent's or your hero phase.
And that's probably a really good call as well, is that people would probably read that and think, oh, right, cool. In my hero phase, I'll be able to move or charge. No, this is my hero phase or your opponent's hero phase. So all of a sudden, if you get double turned, or if you're about to prepare for it, you get given second and your opponent's going first and they're going for an objective. Cool. I could tie them up to stop them and deny them from going for an objective or going for something juicy by throwing that screen of 5 blood letters, or that that multiple small unit, whatever you've picked, blood levers, blood letters, throw them in sacrificially. 1, get a blood tie point if they die, but 2, deny them from getting to the objective or forcing a retreat.
Exactly. And it doesn't sound like much until you actually think about it. And it's a game changer. I've seen Matt Campbell do that to Luke McFadden at Runax, and it was just funny to watch. 5 fleshhounds charged in and tied up all these eels because they're all within 3 inches, and now they couldn't charge and actually do any damage for a whole turn.
Yeah, it's I think that's brilliant as well. And then there's so many other things you can tap into, but those 2 for me, I think you're right, because they're quite easy to generate 3 or 4 blood tie. And yes, the temptation is there again to kind of hold them on for a big summon, but those 2 alone are game changing.
Exactly. Yeah. And everything else, like the 1 for 7 Crimson Rain, I think it is.
Yeah, so you choose a reward once per battle. Immediately after you do so at the start of each of your subsequent hero phases, you can heal up to D3 wounds allocated to each friendly Khorne unit on the battlefield. Like,
that's really good, but it's 7 blood tithe. It's just too expensive. By the time you've got to that, I don't think I've ever used it. Like, I ran 4 bloodthirsters all year, and I still never bothered using it, because at the end of the day, you get 1 more blood tithe and you can bring in a bloodthirster. So if one of those bloodthirsters die, then you get a whole new bloodthirster.
Yeah.
If that was maybe 5, it'd be a lot more usable. But other than that, those other 2, if you're going to use abilities, that's the way to go. Otherwise, you just summon.
Yeah, I think what's clear is have a real plan and think about the value, and think about how, because each blood tie is based off a unit dying. So how hard is it going to be to get those additional 1, 2, 3 units to die, or is it again easier to go for those 3 or 4? I think that's what I'm hearing from you.
Exactly, and 1 as well. That 1 blood tithe for a command point, that's really good early game, especially if you're running on your priest blood sacrifice. Your turn is blood sacrifice. You get the 1 blood tithe, and then at the beginning of your opponent's turn, you get a command point. That's a nice little cheeky one. Even late, that there is good when you've just used your blood tithe for your next go. If you just want to stock up on command points, that's quite usable too. But again, that's just early game, good for farming. But again, once you've got 2 or 3 or 4, there's a lot better things to do. You got 2 blood tithe, drop down 5 blood letters. That's sometimes far more advisable than having another command point, especially when you got like Crimson Crown and all those other things that we can generate command points from too.
I'm gonna ask the newbie question here.
Yep.
Can I use my blood tie for 2 things? Like, could I go?
No.
I want to get a command point, and then I want to summon 5 blood.
No. It's just that's it. 1 thing, and then I don't know if it says at the beginning, but yeah, it's just once you've used that, got that reward, the command points are set at 0.
Okay, so it's not just when I summon, we go back to 0.
No, it's just anything. So yeah, you can't, even if you've got 6, you can't use 5 points to summon and 1 point to use a blood tithe table. It's just you get one go at it, and then it's set to 0.
Yeah, because obviously, like, someone's looking at the maths going, right, I got 3 blood tie. Oh, I'd love the command point, and I'd love to get 5 blood letters down, 5 bloodthirsters. I'd love 5 bloodthirsters. I'd love 5 blood letters down.
I said a few times. Well, yeah, that would be brilliant. I said a few times last year that we could almost be as strong as summoning Slanesh if it was something like that, or you didn't lose your blood tithe, and you could just do it where we could keep them going. Our summoning would be a lot stronger. But the fact that it goes back to 0, I don't know, it probably makes it a little bit more challenging too.
of the allegiance ability. So I guess you got we've got the Blood Lords, we've got the Gore Type, we've got the Skull Fiend Tribe. That's a mouthful. We've got the Reapers of Vengeance. And then obviously we just talked about the flayed ones, and we talked about the ones from the Wrath of the Everchosen. Are there ones that stand out for you more in the current meta?
The Reapers and the Gore-Tide, like the current meta with the high heavy shooting, it's making life hard for Reapers of Vengeance players. Like that was good last year when, Slanesh, more was it War Clans and all those were getting around heavy melee. Even Feck, you could go toe to toe with them quite easily. With the shooting and running a lot of points and large monsters, Reapers is going to be a hard push this year. Gore-Tide, I think, will do very well. Having an auto run of 6 and being able to run and charge for your Blood Warriors and your Blood Reapers. Yeah, like that, getting across the board, I think that's going to be a lot stronger than this year's sort of meta. I was even considering running a Gore-Tide and a lot of Skull Reapers. Yeah, the elite ones.
Yeah.
They got, just running them with Bloodstokers, adding the 3 to run and charge, just getting big blobs across the board, trying to tie up your opponent just so you can bring in the rest of the boys sort of thing. But the Skull Fiend Tribe, I think that's got a lot to do with Korgorath. And again, they're not bad, but hard to get a hold of, so hard to build an army around. They're not bad. I don't know. I think the model lets that down more than anything.
I don't think I've ever seen a Skull Fiend Tribe on the table, to be honest.
They're not the best.
I don't think I've ever seen, and even like I run tournament every year. I don't think I've ever seen a submitted list for Skull Fiend Tribe. So if you are listening to this and you are a Skull Fiend Tribe advocate, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear how you're tapping into it, but it's just something that I've never really seen.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen. I haven't even heard of many people running it. Again, no. I think that's more of that sort of thing where you'd probably see a lot of guys running against their mates. You know what I mean? It's got a lot of, say corgis and all that sort of stuff in it. The Bloodlords, that's cool, being able to attack first. But again, you get the extra speed, you get all that stuff for your general. I just don't think it stacks against the Reapers of Vengeance. If you're going to build your list that way, you may as well just go the Reapers of Vengeance and have things going twice. Having a better magic shutdown.
I've had this similar conversation. Like I'm talking to my Cities of Sigmar players, and there's a city called Greywater Fastness, and I'm like, I don't really see the value in it because I can do the same type of build in Tempest Eye, and I just think it's mostly better. Yeah, there's a couple of abilities I'll lose, but I think generally it's a stronger build in Tempest Eye than in Greywater, and I'm hearing that this might be a similar type of thing where it's okay, but if you took the same list and apply it somewhere else, you probably get better stuff.
Exactly, and that's how I find it. Like, there's a few guys around that are playing it and playing it quite decently. Hats off to them because they're playing something a little bit off center as well. But yeah, I just exactly as you said, there's just better ways to do that allegiance.
And by the way, when I talk about this, if you're playing with fun, if you're super passionate about a particular model, do you. This is your hobby. I've never hobby shamed anyone. This is more about a tactical, doing well at tournaments and a competitive kind of build. And if that's what we're here talking about more. So if you're sitting here going, oh man, they're ragging on my allegiance build, mate, just do you. We've all got something stupid we like to put in that's not optimal, but we're passionate or we really enjoy it. So
exactly, and that's what makes the game great, really. It's running those things that aren't perfect and making them work in a list is what makes a great list.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And when you get those victories, it's highly enjoyable. So that's what we're talking more competitive here, guys. So just FYI. So I brought your list up on the screen. So for anyone who's listening to the podcast, we'll just read it out. But for anyone who's joining us live, we'll read through the different parts of this particular list. Again, there is no one list that is ruling them all. This is just Tyler's list, one example. And we're kind of going to demonstrate how this all kind of comes into play. So Tyler, starting us off with the Khorne allegiance, obviously. You've picked the mortal realm from Shyish, or the realm of death. We've got the slaughter host of Reapers of Vengeance. So higher level, why'd you take Reapers of Vengeance? And then we'll go into your leaders, and then obviously the rest of the units.
Yeah, what was that? Sorry, I missed that first one.
Sorry, why did you take this particular Mortal Realm, and then the Reapers?
And then the Reapers. Mortal Realm, this was my master's list, so I was trying to get a little bit tricksy, which didn't really pay off, and I thought I'd throw the Ragged Cloak in onto one of my Bloodthirsters, stop a bit of shooting, slept in for that game, never got to use it against shooting for the whole rest of the tournament, so yeah, it was a waste of time, but that was the reason for the Mortal Realm. Otherwise, normally I don't run a Mortal Realm because I just use Khorne abilities and Khorne artifacts. The Reapers of Vengeance, just because basically the command ability, the building command ability where your demon heroes your demons can pile in and attack twice. And just running heavy Bloodthirsters, that's just unbelievable. The Mag Eater, having an extra Dispel, especially putting it on the Wrath of Khorne with the +2 to Dispel as the built-in artifact, like that's awesome, or that's general trait, sorry. And the Skull Shard Mantle, where if you Dispel on an 8, it's auto-dispelled, and they got D6 mortals, I believe it is.
So, funnily enough, I played a game against Monica at the team's tournament. So she was running Khorne, and I had Hello Heart. So Hello Heart can use a command point and get plus D6 to its spell casting. I rolled a 17 on one of my spells. So I rolled like an 11 or a 10, +1 from the Hurricanum, +6, I think it was from the I think it was like a 17 or an 18.
And she rolled an 8.
I rolled an 8. And it was a big high five because like you sit there, you're like, one, how on earth am I ever going to beat a 17 or an 18? Boom, 8, she got it.
It's unbelievable. And how often it comes up is just, it's unbelievable. It is a really, really good artifact, that one. For a built-in allegiance artifact, it's one you'd almost pick anyway.
Yeah, and it stacks quite well with the Hex Gorgeous Skulls as well, which was also triggering on that 8.
Exactly. Yeah, those things, they are the best. They actually, that's probably one of the best. Apart from our Allegiance abilities and Blood Tithe, the Hex Gorgeous Skulls would be our strongest thing in our whole book.
Yeah, I played Doom and Darkness again with the Hex Gorgeous Skulls. I had a bunch of small little grot wizards who are mostly one or two of them go to the gym and they've got like 5 or 6 wounds, but most of them are 4 wound wizards. And I rolled 8 twice. And he basically popped all my wizards. Luckily, a couple of them have after saves, but you're right, that 8 comes up more than you realize.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice. It's very, very nice. Actually, I was talking to Paddy at CanCon, and he was saying if you ran them up with Archaon and threw him out there and got him to throw a couple of spells to pop those 8s on the Hex Gorgeous Skulls, you're going to damage all the enemy wizards as well. And Archaon doesn't care about D6 mortals. But I'm like, that's a nice little tactic, that is.
So you've got your Wrath of Khorne, Bloodthirster, who's your general. You've taken the command trait Mage Eater, and the artifact is the Skull Shard Mantle. You kind of mentioned, and look, you know what? It's still not a bad choice given that while the Australian Masters last year may not have been a shooting kind of build, more and more shooting is coming to the table. Seraphon's on the table. You know, we've got Zench coming up and shooting. You can only imagine our Lumineth's going to have shooting.
Yeah, that's very true. So this is probably a lot more viable than it was last year anyway, this list.
Well, at least, at the Masters, it's only like 10 or 12 players. So it's, a highly optimized, very bizarre meta. So I still think there's relevance to the Skull Shard Mantle. And then Mage Eater you just talked about.
Sorry.
That's right. Anything else you want to talk about from the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster? Because I can see you've got all 3, actually got all 4 technically versions. You've got the Wrath.
He's my favourite Thirster. It's the fact that one, unbuffed, he's probably the best in combat. He's got 2 shooting attacks, which is just awesome. Like one of them doing 6 damage. The other one's just mortal wounds. Yeah, in combat, he's as good as any of the others, but his command ability, he's the one I love. His command ability allows you to reroll hit rolls for, I think it's demon heroes, which is basically my Bloodthirsters. So guys that hitting on 4s, and now get to reroll that for a command point. Also, he gets to dispel with a +2. giving him like the Mag Eater, which gives him an additional dispel, just makes him is so strong as, you know, a buff piece and a bit of a beat stick as well. Then with the Reaper's Vengeance command ability allowing him to attack twice, like 12 attacks, 3s and 2s, -2 D3 damage is going to move a fair bit of stuff just on his own. So yeah, he's hands down my favourite Bloodthirster.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like +2 the unbinding rolls. Like, he's got some pretty sweet stuff going on. I guess before I move on to the next Bloodthirster, why him out of all of your Bloodthirsters? Why is he the general?
Because of the general trait, the command ability, the general trait Mag Eater, which gives him additional dispel.
Gotcha. Cool. So that kind of combines well with the rune. So the rune Crown of Khorne, which is a +2 to unbind rolls.
Yeah, exactly. So it just gives you 2+2 dispels. You know, like, and stack that with the skulls, which is another -2, and then with the altar, he's got +5 to dispel twice. You know, you can shut down the gas pretty well with that.
Making your opponent's life about time, then add a couple of I don't know what's coming up next, but you know, there's other ways that increase your unbind opportunities, or at least some of them on the table, which is great. And again, we're kind of entering this high magic with the likes of Cities of Sigmar, with the likes of Tzeentch and Seraphon, and you can only imagine Teclis is going to be a strong magic caster when Lumineth come out.
Exactly. Yes, no, magic's so strong, and that's the good thing about the Reapers. It is, you know, he amplifies his abilities so well.
Anything else about the Wrath, or should we talk next about, you got the next one up with the Bloodthirster?
No, that's about him.
Next one is the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury.
Now, he's in pretty much 90% of Khorne lists with Bloodthirsters these days for the 6-inch pile-in. It's a game changer. You know, it allowed us, I found it made Khorne, used to love playing Slaanesh because they couldn't deal with it real well. There's so many armies, daughters, you know, you could put a screen out in front of you, put 2 screens in front of you. They could hit it. You could then pile in 6 inches, hit over the top of your own models and just wreck people. You know, you could run 6 inches and then pile in an additional 6 inches. So, you know, it's like getting a 12-inch charge off every turn. You know, it's just all these little things. It was a game changer for Khorne, really.
So the benefits of that, and, you know, you might want to add to this, you know, because some people may not see the real benefit to that. Like, 6-inch pile-in, it just means that I can move my stuff longer. It's not quite what it's about. So the 6-inch pile-in is going to help you. One, you're right. If I'm in combat, I can pile in and I can as I'm about to pile in, I can probably get into a juicier target. Yes, absolutely. But you mentioned a comment, I might get you to expand upon this, and you said it's great against Slaanesh. So we talk about the order, the sequence order. So the Keeper of Secrets, I think, is it within 6 or within 3 inches? It can roll a die.
Within 6 inches. Was it on a 2-up at that stage? It's changed now. You'd go last in combat. And it didn't matter because if I was 4 inches away from them, I'm going last in combat. They can't activate combat because they're not within 3 inches of me. Yeah. So even though I'm going last, I still get to hit them. And you know, like, that was it, basically game over. So, yeah, you could run up. You could leave 3 Bloodthirsters out of combat, or even the good way to do it, because with the Reapers, you couldn't stack the attacking twice and then the battalion ability of going one after the other. But the way to get around that would be to run all your Bloodthirsters up, stay 5 inches away, activate the 6-inch pile-in, and then you can just go with twice, one after the other, until, you know, they wouldn't have much left anyway.
Yeah, so it's really playing around with not being within 3, but being in that 4 or 5 kind of bracket. Tapping into, you know, you've got a lot of 2-inch reach weapons as well, so you're able to get into some of the more juicier targets, but also you're able to play around or even be drawn into combat when you weren't actually in combat range.
Exactly. It allows you to dictate combat very nicely. You know, as I said, you don't have to be in combat. Even them charging you. No one wants to charge 10 Blood Reavers and end up with 3 Bloodthirsters piling in over the top because they're 4.5, 5 inches away. And it just, it stopped a lot of that, which then, if they're not charging, they're not killing my screens, I can still attack over them. It just, it made your opponent think, and it put them off balance too, because a lot of people weren't used to playing against it, because it was one of those weird rules that was written to be against the main rules.
The land rebels as well, before we move on to the next one. I really like the land rebels. So at the start of the hero phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit hold within 8. On a 5+, you take a mortal wound as well. So that's a nice little way to kind of chip down some wounds, especially now you're in combat.
I think also the Unfettered Fury, you can stop an opponent retreating.
At the start of the enemy movement phase, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of the model. That unit cannot retreat in that phase.
That's awesome. Skaven, just things like that. It's more useful than you think, but it's very easily forgotten about as well. And I think a lot of those little rules, a lot of people don't use them, but that's what makes these things that takes them to that next level, just those little sort of tiny little things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dan Brewer was talking to us earlier about just the ability to retreat and charge is just winning games alone, just by dictating the table. People take skinks in Starborn to allow them to be able to move around the board again, retreat and charge. You're stopping that objective. So retreat. Anything else you want to add around the Bloodthirst, the Unfettered Fury?
No, not really. Again, solid Bloodthirst. He's done a hit. He's more of a buff character. I normally, if I wasn't running the Ragged Cloak on the Insensate Rage, I used to run him with the Crimson Crown, which allowed you to use your command ability on your War Scroll for free once per turn. Which again,
that pile-in is awesome.
Yeah, you're going to use it, and it's a free CP basically once per turn. So that was a good way to use that, and allowed you to use it basically whenever you wanted.
Next up, we've got the Bloodthirster of Incessant Rage, and we've just talked about the Ragged Cloak. So maybe why did you put the Ragged Cloak on this particular model, and then what does this particular Bloodthirster bring to the table?
Well, I put on him mainly because the Ragged Cloak, it can't be targeted for shooting for a turn. He's your beat stick basically. He's got less attacks. He hits on a 4, not a 3, so he's not as reliable. You can buff him out nicely. You can get him down to a 2, 2s and 2s. But, for me, if I put a lot of artifacts and stuff like that are actually make my army work on him, I'm scared to throw him at someone. But he's devastating. When he rolls a 6 to wound, he does 4 mortal wounds, or depending on his wound chart. But at best, it's 4 mortal wounds for every 6 to wound to every unit within 8 inches of him, which can just, clear a board basically.
So he does only have 5 attacks with the Wrath of Khorne axe. So you're lucky probably to get 1 6 off. But
exactly,
when it does hit, boom.
It sounds awesome, but you can go tournaments and not roll 1 6. But mind you can go other tournaments and you can roll 6s all day, and when it goes off, because you're killing, if you get 2 6s, that's 8 mortal wounds within 8 inches. It's just devastating.
In addition to the regular damage, so that's in addition to the Ren 2 D6 damage that you're about to hit whatever.
Yeah, and it's just the thought of it more than anything. Again, when people know what it is, it's more how your opponents move around him. Just having that thing. Again, you play Grots or Cities. You don't want him hitting your line. He could potential to kill so many of your small characters in one round of combat that it's just not worth moving up and just holding back a little bit more. And he's very good at just making your opponent not do what they want to do sometimes.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about this type of build is that technically all 4, when we talk about Scarbrand, which comes up next, all 4 of them are a threat. Each opponent should be having at least 3 to 4 threats in their armies. This alone is 4 threats. So I could focus all of my attention on that Unfettered Fury to stop at the 6-inch pile-in, but then I've got the Wrath or Bloodthirster, I've got the Incessant Rage Bloodthirster coming at me, and all of them are equally damaging and equally scary. So you do force your opponent to make tough decisions, and you're right, as a Grot player, I work off potential. My Mangler Squeak could kill 6 or 7, massive dudes. It's destroyed a Brass Stampede. On the flip side, it hits you with a pillow and you just laugh at me. but it's that damaging potential that people freak out at. That go, holy shit! You could auto delete my buff piece, big hero. In actual fact, the likelihood of getting that 1/6 to wound is pretty slim, but it's that potential of getting a hit that people are worried about.
Exactly. And I think that's a major strategy of the game, especially competitively. It's making your opponent not do what they want to do. And that's the thing, just having him sitting out there, throwing him out there early, people don't want to move up there nasty stuff because he can delete anything when he wants to. But mind you, he hits on 4s. There's times when I've had him go in twice and maybe make 2 wounds, D6 damage as well. It's too random, But, yeah, for 270 points, very, very good, scare Carnifex at worst case scenario.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of the granddaddy of scare Carnifex, it is the Scarbrand himself, a man that, or a female, whatever you want. I should probably stop putting genders on things. They're just bloody models. But Scarbrand is something that people either love or hate. A very interesting particular model. Why Scarbrand? What is that bringing to the table?
I was running 2 Insensate Rages for quite a while. And where I had problem was running up, I think I played Neil's list in one tournament and Nighthorns, and I just had so many of these armies with ethereal saves, or they will ignore my rend. And Bloodthirsters are terrible without rend too. So I didn't have the mortal wound output reliably in my army, and that's where Scarbrand came. Having him go twice, doing 8 mortal wounds twice. So he's guaranteed 16 mortal wounds off one of his weapons every combat phase. After the first round.
Which is crazy.
Crazy. And that's guaranteed. That's on a 1-up. You roll a 6, that's 16 mortal wounds, and you can do that twice. You can potentially have 32 mortal wounds out of 1 round of combat. And then he's got another weapon. I think it's got 8 attacks, 4s and 3, or 3s and 3s, or 4s and 3s, neg 2, 3 damage. He's an army killer.
So funny story. I can't remember when I know I've told this on the channel at least once. Scarbrand in 1 round of combat. I'm not talking about Battle Shock here. This is 1 round of combat. Killed 54 grots.
Yep.
54 damage because he activated twice. He just had those. I think he triggered that explosion twice.
And if you throw a Blood Secretor in there, you get 2 attacks per round. So you have 4 of those attacks. So potentially you could do 64 damage out of 1 weapon in 1 round of combat. Which
is brutal. And I know I'm talking about grots, but still that's a lot of wounds if you apply that to something else. That was 54 or 56 damage.
You'd expect them to hold a unit up for at least 2 turns, really.
I was really lucky because I was able to apply a command point to inspire presence. I had fanatics in there, and then the fanatics ended up whooping him. But that's not the story. The story is he did 54 damage or 56 damage, which is going to delete the best hero or the best unit probably that's holding an objective. So again, potential alone, Scarbrand is a scary threat that will then stop people from attacking. Your Incessant Rage or your Unfettered Fury.
Exactly. I used him as a great flanking piece because you could run him with a little bit of a screen. No one wanted to go near him. And he could just, when he hits, he just causes so much damage. He just ruins the side of a board, basically.
Finally, from a hero selection, you've got your Slaughter Priest, which has the Blood Blessing of Killing Frenzy.
Yep. Again, normally I run... Blood Sacrifice to harvest the Blood Tithe.
Yeah.
Again, I just try something a little bit different here. Go for the easier one where that's plus. Killing Frenzy is great. It's +1 to hit, which is awesome for any army. But the Slaughter Priest's biggest thing, the main reason I ran him in every army was the fact that he can summon the Hexgorger Skulls.
Mm.
I'm a bit of a fan of I don't run a Secretor. I try to keep it off what everybody tries to run their Khorne list. Everyone says you have to have Slaughter Priest, you have to have a Secretor, or it doesn't work. If I could summon the Hexgorger Skulls from something else, I would have dropped him as well. He is a very good piece. For 100 points, he's awesome. But I try to use him in my army as a solo piece where everyone tries to target him to beat you. And I've had people just try to put so much effort into killing him. If I've got blood sacrifice on him and he's bringing out the skulls, that's his only really role for the army. Yeah. He's not buffing anything else. People can do what they want to do. They're going to kill 100 points, maybe 140 points with the, with the judgments, but it doesn't affect the way my bloodthirsters and the rest of my army works. And that's the way I try to build him, was because I just find Khorne's very vulnerable if you've got all these small characters that someone can come in and pick off early turns, and then what do you do then? You just got a whole bunch of nothing running up the board trying to, wave their weapons around, basically.
Yeah, and like, that's always a strategy when you come up against a Gore Pilgrims is, there's particular heroes you want to take down first to kind of disarm a Gore Pilgrims, but that's not why you bring in the Slaughter Priest into this particular picture. So, again, nice little threat, and people have flashbacks from their Gore Pilgrim days, and they might be going for that Slaughter Priest. And you know what? If it does die, the Hex Gorgeous Skulls isn't that expensive. So it's not like you're losing, this massive point investment of, Umbral Spell Portal or Geminids or, something that's, that in that 60 to 100 points.
It's 40 points, exactly.
Yeah. And the cool thing as well as Hex Gorgeous Skulls is their prayers. So it means that, your Wizard Unbinds aren't going to really come into play. So
that's exactly right. Exactly.
So from a unit point of view, you've got a whole bunch of cool things, some interesting things as well. Some people might go, what? So you've got 10 Blood Reavers, 10 Blood Reavers, 10 Blood Reavers. 2 of them have Meat Ripper axes. 1 has the Reaver Blades. You've got 4. Sorry, my eyes are tripping me. So you've got 3 units of the Meat Ripper axes, and then you've got 1 with the Reaver Blades. And then you've got 2 units of 5 Centaurs, so pulling out of the Beast of Chaos book. So bring me to the Blood Reavers. So I guess 2, why 4 units? Why are they 10? And why is 3 got the Meat Rippers and 1 has the Reaver Blades?
Weapon options, it's just WYSIWYG, and that's what I've got built. It's just, to me, Blood Reavers, if they make 1 kill, 1 wound in a tournament, I'll be wrapped. They're just there as speed bumps and blood type. 70 points, they got a 6-up save, there's 10 wounds. They run away. I try not to take banners or anything like that with them. They're basically there to die as quick as possible, and I look at that's 4 blood type. To get those 4 blood type, they may have lost a unit or 2, so that's potentially 6 blood type over 2 turns is the way I look at those Blood Reavers, and that's it, really. Speed bumps and blood type. The Centaurs...
Tapping into multiple, we use this term MSU, which means multiple small units. So you're kind of using this to generate those the blood type points through having not big blocks of 30, because it's going to take a long time to get that one blood tie. You're going for multiple small units, which is 1, going to screen up the board, 2, give you flexibility to move around the board and hold an objective, screen from like a teleport. And 3 obviously generate blood tie.
Exactly, and that's all they are. Like, people invest a lot of points into characters to buff out Reavers, and they can get quite effective. You can get them up to 5 attacks with Ren 1, they can be quite good, but it's not the way I build it. And I figure, what's the point of investing a little bit of points in, like a Secretor, to make them sort of good, when I may as well just use them for what they are, as basically, just speed bumps, blood type, cheap.
Yeah. And hey, you know what? They're the perfect screen for that 6-inch pile-in bloodthirster. So, keep them 4 inches or 3 inches, or 4 inches. So if they do get charged in combat, they're out. They can't be kind of targeted, and then you activate the command point. They move in. Happy days. You've protected them with some cheap 70-point bodies.
Exactly, and they're not too bad. They move 6. They get +1 to run and charge. They can move half decently up the board. They're not fast by any means, but they're not slow either.
Then you've got some Centaurs. So you've got 2 units of 5 Centaurs. So how do they come into this army? Because they're not in the battle tome.
They're not in the battle tome, no. I find the hardest thing for me with Khorne is we're not fast. It's not a slow army, but it's only a mid-range, We haven't got any super fast units, and I found that's what hurt quite a bit, was just getting up the board, crowding your opponent, and allowing my big boys to roll through and then do, pick their spot and then do their things. I was running some Warhounds as well, and Senegals. Senegals, to me, are probably my favourite unit in the whole game. They got a 4-up save, which, for a Khorne player, that's awesome for my, just a basic unit. 2 wounds each. There's 10 wounds in there, 80 points. They got a 14-inch move. They can run and charge, and they get +1 to run, I think it is, and +1 to pile in. So they've got a 21-inch threat range, and they can charge, which is crazy. They've been game winners for me, just stealing objectives, pushing them up the side of the boards, hitting people's lines turn 1, jamming up, like Slanesh, jamming up a heap of demonettes, tagging the side of them. They can't do anything for a turn or so. By the time I can get up there then, next turn, you're in behind their units claiming objectives. For 80 points, they are the best unit in the game.
I know Matt Campbell, again, I keep referring to Matt Campbell. He's probably my biggest he's probably my biggest reference point because he is the one I probably play the most.
He is the best Khorne player around.
Not only is he a great player, but he's in my local scene, so I'm playing Matt constantly. Well, I often see him play Matt a lot. But I know Matt was using for a while flesh hounds. So
flesh hounds, and in the battalion he uses gives them, I think, a 10-inch move.
Yeah. Plus, for the extra 20 points per unit, you get the unbind as well. You're able to have it to attempt to dispel a model. So that gives you the flexibility if that's important.
Exactly, that is right. Like, again, I like the Senegals because they are a bit off center. You don't see them very often either. That is true, but again, even 10 inches, I just found it's fast mid-tier speed. I wanted high speed, and I found, as I said, 21 inches and you can pull a charge off. That's, to me, it was helping the rest of my army work. Having the 4-up save as well, you could tag a unit and you could most of the time keep them there for a turn or two. And as I said, just objective stealers. When I was running Warhounds, they were great because they got a minimum 16-inch run. So, you just get an auto 6. But just pushing them straight up turn 1, 6 or 8 inches away from the opponent, knowing they're going to die, and they were like the Blood Reavers, where cheap blood ties and your opponent's only moving so far this turn.
Just so the internet doesn't rage at me, just to clarify, Centaur's allies in this unit, in this army, are they marked, or how do they come into this? No,
they're not marked. They're just to have them marked with Khorne, you have to run them in the battalion, the Beastman battalion.
Yeah, so Beast of Chaos have particular battalions, so you can mark them for Khorne, Nurgle, blah blah blah. So if they're not marked.
No, they're just allies, basic allies, and I just found they still generate blood tithe because of any unit that's destroyed. So they're basically still got the same role as the Blood Reavers. They're getting as buffed as the Blood Reavers. But as I said, they're just so quick. Again, I could put in Flesh Hounds and there's other options, but with the amount of points I've invested in my characters, I still felt that I needed at least 6 screening units to be able to give myself time to be able to use those guys to their full potential. So that's basically why I haven't got Flesh Hounds for the extra unbinds and stuff like that in there.
Yeah, that's fine. And again, this kind of just demonstrates that there is no one single list. You build it around you. If you don't want to do Senegals, cool, go find something else if you like the idea of, the fast speed, fast movement. Or if you are going to go Flesh Hounds and realize that they don't move as fast as Centaurs, how can I make them faster? Is there a way? Or is that important to me? So, again, there's just lots of different ways you can do this. This is just one example.
It's just total play style with Khorne. Like, I just wanted something to get in their face turn 1. Again, that's just me basically. And as I said, my biggest thing with them was trying to make something that was off center work. That didn't really affect me too much. Sorry.
No, that's fine. A burning question that I have, and I know the chat's asking me this as well. They want to know what the thoughts are between, and they're not in your list, but they just like your general thoughts around if you were going to build Skull Crushers or Blood Crushers, which one do you have a preference on?
Like, for the points, Skull Crushers, the 5-up save for our demons is horrible. Maybe they might have a 4-up, but I know the mortal ones they're just too tough. They haven't got the damage output, but I've been playing with an Archaon list lately because you can get him as an absolute beat stick in Khorne. But I was even considering running the Skull Crushers as battle line for him just because they're so beefy. For a Khorne unit, 3-up save, you can get them to a 2-up quite easily. They can move quite well. I think the Skull Crushers without even a second thought.
But yeah, Skull Crushers for me seem to be the better of the two.
And they're not that much more expensive.
No, but if I had a plan or a battalion, or I had something that I was building around, there is viability in Blood Crushers. It's just you've got to think a bit harder around how you maximize this big point investment.
I think if you wanted to get Blood Crushers in your army, I would build more around trying to summon them in for 5 blood type.
Yeah.
And which wouldn't be hard to do, you know what I mean? Like you could have a plan to have them out there by turn 2 or 3. Like as I said, that list there, I try to have by my turn 2, 4 blood type, 5 blood type. You know what I mean? And then I've got that's just from losing my own chaff. So you could build a list more so to slow them down, build them up, and then just to have them coming in. But I don't think the points for Blood Crushers. There's just, again, so many better options around, and Skull Crushers is the way to go.
And in saying all of this as well, right, the General's Handbook is fast approaching. So who knows if the points are going to change? Who knows what's going to come in the next iteration? Who knows what Gargants and Lumineth and whatever extra army comes up next? And who knows, there might be something in there. But probably what I'm hearing at this point in time, we're going Skull over Blood Crushers at the moment.
Yeah, demons in the new Khorne, most of the demons copped a pretty big hit, except for the Bloodthirsters.
Which is why we're probably seeing more Gore Pilgrim-esque mortal builds, as opposed to what we used to see when the book very first come out, which is that big blocks of blood letters running up at your face. Murder Host. You'd have Murder Host, or you'd have the Blood Crusher version, which is just that turn 1 in your face.
Exactly. And Khorne hasn't got that sort of speed anymore, I find, as a whole. And that goes back to why I've got my Senegals in there, just to have that turn 1. Here's something in your face to deal with, sort of thing. And I had heaps of fun converting them as well.
Yeah. Again, do you pick your models you enjoy, whatever. This is just one of many examples. You've got the Tyrants of Blood battalion, and you're bringing us a Hex Gorgeous Skulls and an additional command point. So probably no surprise why we're taking the Tyrants of Blood.
No, it's too good not to. Like the day I picked up the book and flicked through it, like it's the thing that jumps out at you, stacking that with the Reaper's Vengeance. It's one of those rules when you first look at it, you're reading it 5 or 6 times to make sure you've actually got it right. Having your Bloodthirsters going one after the other, or being able to go twice, or just having 5 Bloodthirster attacks in a row is devastating. Most armies can't handle that. Yeah,
it is devastating, especially when you're building around it. It's clearly you are building around it and putting so many points into your heroes. Hex Gorgeous Skulls, absolute no-brainer. 40 points. It is going to annoy the living bejeebus out of your opponents if they are a spellcasting army. The threat alone of hitting an 8 on a natural 8 cast is brutal and scary, especially because a lot of wizards, especially those lower wizards, don't have like a mortal wound save, so you can pop them quite easily.
Yep, and it's a natural 8 too, so it doesn't matter how many buffs you got. It's surprising how often that 8 goes off.
Yeah.
And you only got to get it. Sorry.
I played against Hex Gorgeous Skulls many times now, and you can almost reliably get. It always happens. Look, for me, I got like 3 or 4 casters in my army, and it always happens at least once a game.
Yeah, but that's why they are for 40 points. They're the best additional unit to that new book than from what we had. Like they are great. To me, they are the must-take in the book out of everything.
And then finally, you got your additional command point.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty heavy command point army, that one, where like my Wrath of Khorne's command ability going off, the 6-inch piling command ability going off, all my Bloodthirsters attacking twice command abilities going off. So yeah, there's a lot of command point heavy, that very command point heavy, that army.
So talk me through, like, how do you win? So if I'm playing Khorne, and we alluded to it, well, I didn't allude, I said it. This army is not a Iron Jaws run up and just smash and smash and bash. You are a bit more tactical because you are a glass cannon. You can't take the hit as well as you dish the hit. So I guess, how do you win? How do you win this game? Obviously, again, tables and scenarios and opponents are going to be different, but at a high level.
My tactic basically is literally jamming the board with small speed bumps, and just that board control to me was the main way to do it. Trying to jam them up, only allowing them to do what they can do, just trying to pick off sides, picking off screens until you can get to the meat of their army without them getting back. Like the 4 Bloodthirsters going up, just having triple screens or double screens all the way through, knowing that if they hit me, they're not going to go through me. Even if they double turn me, they're not going to get through those screens before my Bloodthirsters can hit back. Knowing that I can always retaliate, they're not going to be outside of that 6 inches. You've got to keep it as a very close fist to a certain degree, I found, until you're ready to explode.
Yeah.
Sort of, you're just moving up, picking your time. And when you pick your time, if you pick your time right, as I said, you can crush an opponent's army in a turn if you hit them at the right time, in the right spot.
Yeah, I think it's a massive mistake in most games if you try to be like a turn 1 charging Maw Crusher or Stonehorn. If you just try to run up the board like the old Khorne, the 2016, 2017 Khorne, you're likely to get smashed and you can't take the hit. That's the one thing I've noticed, especially if I can double turn Khorne. That's where I find that I can really swing the momentum of the game because you just can't take the hits.
No, that's exactly right. And like even my list there, it's you touch those Bloodthirsters, if you get a charge in on me, I've got no chance of withstanding it. You'll wipe them. You don't even need anything good to wipe all those. You get 20 yard boys into those 4 Bloodthirsters. It's good night. You know what I mean? You lose that, there's 1,600 points or 1,200 points of your army just gone. You got nothing back. So, yeah, it's really keeping your opponent away from you till you're ready to strike first. And if you hit first, Skaven was quite hard last year, if they're shooting, but it wasn't a great deal of long-range shooting, so you could pick at it, and with using your Blood Tithe right, you could bounce forward. It's going to be a lot harder this year with, like, Seraphim. I know they're just brutal amount of shooting. That's going to be quite hard to buff out on. Tzeentch, I haven't played Tzeentch yet, but I know they're going to be quite hard.
Cities. Like I'm playing a lot of cities. I'm doing a lot of tabletop simulator. I'm seeing other people playing. The amount of attacks that come out of Iron Drakes, that come out of your crossbowmen, your handgunners. You can put out your Sisters of the Watch, Thorn, the ones that are on the Sisters of the Watch. There's a lot of shooting coming out, and to be able to deal with things like Lords of Change, be able to take out things like in OBR, taking out things like the Harvesters, or talking about some of those character buff pieces. We are leaning in more and more and more into shooting and longer range shooting as well, mortal wound shooting to take down things like the Stiladons. So if I was a Khorne player, I would expect that there's going to be more shooting than ever when tournaments resume.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that list there was great last year. I think it's going to struggle this year. Multi-large units, you don't get me wrong, you're going to win a lot of games, but when you start getting those final days and the top of the tables, and when you're getting, as you say, a lot of that long-range shooting, if people know how to use it, it's going to be an uphill battle. So I'm thinking, again, Mortal Khorne can be quite good and can be quite fast with your Gore Tides. You can get things like Bloodstokers in there, and we can get units with quite good saves by the time we buff them and that. So there's a few options around that, but the Bloodthirst days, it's like Slaanesh. You don't see as many Slaanesh list rounds or, Terrorgeist lists. These things they're going to get picked off.
Yeah. And just to clarify, questions coming up here as well. So when I summon, this is like someone may have missed this. Maybe you took a pause from Age of Sigmar for a while. In the old version of Age of Sigmar, when you summon something, that counted towards your army points. So you couldn't summon something above 2,000 points. You'd have like these points in reserve. But now in Age of Sigmar, since General's Handbook maybe 18, 19, kind of around that Soul Wars time, summoning is free essentially. So you still put down your 2,000 points of your models on the board, and anything you can generate through Blood Tie or Zench does it through casting of spells, that's put on the table in addition to your 2,000 points that you are legally allowed in a match play game to put down. So just to clarify, in case anyone new is thinking, but I only want to put 1,600 points down and I've got a couple of points.
Yep.
Okay.
But sorry.
No, that's fine. Anything else? Yeah, how else do you?
No, that's about it really. I can't. Yeah, as I said, new meta. I think it's going to be a whole new world for Khorne. We haven't got the firepower, to sit back. We got to get in their face. As you said, we're not smashing your face. You've got to go into most games with game plan. I think that's the thing with Khorne. You've got to have a battle plan going into a game. You can't just run across the board blindly. It's not going to turn out good.
No, the waves of murder hosts are long gone. Do we bring in shooting? Do we bring in skull cannons? Skull cannons that make a return. I know we started to see them when they were pre-FAQ'd and you could buff them.
You're getting 2 shots out of them.
Yeah. There was like this window of 10 minutes where you could buff the shooting, and then that kind of quickly got nerfed. But is there a return of bringing some shooting back into Khorne?
With how many points we have to pay for our shooting, like those skull cannons, I don't even know how many points. I think they're about 140 points or something for one shot, 3s and 3s. It's not what you're never going to get the points out of them ever. And other than that, we haven't got the options. I've looked at the mercenary companies, the Blackfire, the dwarf cannons and stuff like that. By the time you get a unit of that in there with a lord, you're looking at nearly 500 points to make that work.
And you lose a CP you lose your first CP by taking like the mercenary companies.
Yeah, it's not a viable option, and we don't have the shooting viable options. I think it's going to be more of just swarming the board, you know what I mean? Maybe trying like Marauders. They're a very good option. A few of these like Slaves to Darkness units to go in there. Marauders, you can run units of 20 of those. You can shoot them up the board with a few Slaves characters. You can get them, I think, +6 to run and charge sort of thing, and then they're running with the minimal dice rolls turned to a 6. So you can get them up the board quite well, tying things up. Archaon, you can buff him out to like a 1-up rerollable save that just flies across the board at 29 inches. There's a few options like this, but I think Khorne's going to have to look at more survivability so we can actually get into combat more than just going, when I touch you, you're dead, but if you touch me first, I'm dead. We haven't got that option anymore.
And how many drops is this list?
That list is 8. 8, Khorne's number. Yeah, I built my list to be 8 drops.
Be rewarded. So maybe that's another thing to consider is looking at ways to get down your drops as much as possible so you can dictate who goes first. Because I can tell you right now, if you and I were playing Tyler, I would, and I was out dropping you, I'd let you go first. Because I've got a lot of magic, I've got a lot of shooting, I want to get in range as much as possible. So if you want to be able to dictate the terms of the battlefield, thinking about ways you can reduce those drops, double battalions, whatever.
Exactly. Like, as I said, that worked quite well last year. I think 60% of the time I was still dictating with that 8 drops, but I was quite lucky as well. But yeah, I think you want to be looking at about 5 drops to have a good chance. And it's quite easy to do. Like, I've built a few lists like it. Again, I built it at 8 drops because I could claim it as a fluffy list then.
I love it. I love
it.
And look, I might do another show like this, but more focused around the mortals. I think, again, if we talk to mortal build, hell, you could bring in, the Gaunt Summoner. If you want to bring a little bit of magic into your army, and they once per game can bring in a free unit of, pink horrors or bloodletters, or bring on some additional bodies as well. So it's a pretty cheap hero.
Exactly. Well, I found even without the Gaunt Summoner, like bringing slaves units, if you wanted to add magic, I added magic at CanCon, and I brought in just the Slaves of Darkness Sorcerer Lord on foot. If you've got any units, then like his built-in spells for slaves of characters was awesome. I know it didn't have the summoning, but for 110 points, adding a little bit of magic to your army was very effective, and again, adding slaves units to it, even knights for 180 points, those things hit like a truck. If you've got the right buff characters, there's your speed, and you know what I mean? So I think if you sat down, done a little bit of work, and didn't mind applying anything from demons to mortals to slaves to even a few beasts and stuff like that in there, you can bring all the weaknesses and all the strengths together sort of thing and build something effective even for the new meta.
Yeah, think about if you're going demon, going mixed, you're going mortal. You're right. We can draw upon this. This to me is very Cities of Sigmar-esque, right? Because you guys can draw from Beasts of Chaos. You can draw from the Wrath of the Everchosen.
Yep.
You can draw from Slaves of Darkness. You can draw from your own battle tome. So you can kind of make your own thing, and whatever your strength is. Clearly, your strength is in your bloodthirsters and really making the most of those guys. But again, if you want to go Karanak, you want to tap into the Blood Hunt Battalion, and tapping into whatever it might be, or you love your Blood Crushers.
Exactly. I think big thing, like there's no right or wrong build. As I said, like there's so many different ways to build Khorne. Have a plan. Try and like those allegiance abilities. Best place to start, and then have a plan on what you want to do with your blood tithe and your summoning and that sort of stuff, and then just go from there. You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways. Khorne's biggest weakness, you only have 6 characters in a list. We've got 50 characters that you want to put in a list. You know what I mean? So over buffing is a really good way to bring yourself down, and as I said, you can put in, I've seen guys running very similar lists to mine with the 4 Bloodthirsters, Scarbrand and that, and they have a Blood Secretor in there. And next thing, they've only got 4 or 5 screen units. If you've got 4 screen units, all of a sudden those guys hit you one turn and double turn you. Now they're into your meat, And it's just, I find it very easy to go too far with Khorne. Work out what you want to do and don't take it further than that. Just try and make what you're trying to do work.
And that was literally my discussion with Michael Clarke when I was talking about Hallow Heart, is that Hallow Heart really rewards you for getting like magical supremacy, but there's this point where you've got too much redundancy, or you put too many points in your magic, and you don't have enough to screen, you don't have enough to claim objectives. And when things go south, and again, I talk about this turn 1 charging Maw Crusher or Stonehorn, and there are other ways that people can get in your face turn 1. If I can't dictate the terms of battle, if I can't outdrop my opponent, and they turn 1 charge me without my buffs, without my command points, because I don't have enough for Inspiring Presence, or I'm wholly out of my buff pieces, I'm in for a bad time, and the game's almost lost its deployment. So thinking about that, and at least you're lucky to have a really robust summoning pool. So you can bring in different things.
Yeah, it is good like that. As I said, it's very easy to reliably say to build around your summoning. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like Nurgle. I've got a new Nurgle army playing with that, and I'm like, it's very hard to summon. It's very easy to shut down their summoning. You know what I mean? Yeah. Same as Slaanesh. It's easy to shut down their summoning too. You just throw 1 wound models at them all the game, and they can't bring anything back. Khorne is lucky like that you can, as you say, it's not strong, but it's very robust.
Yeah,
you can just keep doing it all game basically, and you're pretty right like that. But as I said, if that's the way you want to go, that's the way you build. But if you want to play those blood tithe, as I said, I think that is the stronger way to do it. It's probably a little bit more hit miss where you're not getting the units on the board as much, but when it goes off a lot stronger.
Yeah. The last question I've got here to wrap things up is, what have you learned in your time of playing with Khorne that might not be almost like obvious on the book. So if I was reading the book for the first time and I'm looking at things and maybe it's something that I think is going to work really well, and I think we've talked about the blood tie, not always focusing on the bloodthirster. But what have you learned in all of your experience that might not be as obvious just reading this battle tome for the first time?
Like, I think I've touched on them both, but one, I think we're a lot slower than we look. And I think that catches a lot of people out. Like, even a 10-inch move, or, guys that move 8 inches and that, it's not fast when you look at other armies' fast movements. And, I think that can be one of our major weaknesses that a lot of people just don't realise until they start playing guys like Eels and stuff like that, where you've just got no chance to keep up. I think the other weakness, and I think, again, I just said it, it's so easy to overbuff this army. It's so easy just to see, oh, look at these Reavers. They got like 16 attacks each. Look how good they are. But they're never actually going to utilise all that ability sort of thing. You know what I mean? You're wasting. It's so easy to waste points. And I think that's the biggest weakness in the army, where people just see all these buffs. And I see it on Facebook pages and that all the time. Like, oh, and if this done this, I'm like, how are you going to get 40 Reavers into another unit? Because the footprint on them is so big. When the math comes out, it sounds awesome, but realistically, you're going to get 5 or 10 guys in there, and then you've got all these points that have done nothing. That's just going to get wrecked, And as I said, I think those two are the biggest things: our lack of speed and the ease it is to buff characters, because things stack so easily with us.
Yeah. No, you're right. I couldn't agree more. And you know what? Maybe this is where, and we probably shouldn't be talking about magic in Khorne, but maybe this is where chronomatic cogs comes into play.
I'm a big fan. Honestly, if that's the way you're building it, and if I was building a mortal list, again, like for 110 points, you can put a wizard in that army. Cheap. He's doing well. He's still got a dispel as well. You can sit on an objective, but the ability to be able to do that, if that's the way you want to run, if you want to run a fast-hitting mortal list, I'm a big fan of that sort of stuff. I know Khorne doesn't like magic, but
I mean, even the Gaunt Summoner, again, we talked about it, puts a free unit on the table as well as its summoning ability. So it essentially pays for itself.
And his magic is brutal. Yeah. That's a great, and the beauty of him is too in a Khorne list, because we debuff magic so well. You want to get him away. So maybe a Gaunt Summoner is a good thing. You can get him away, you can give him his own screen, and he's not getting debuffed by our shrine and our skulls and all the other stuff that goes with us, secretors and all that stuff too. So, but I'm a big fan of magic in Khorne if it's needed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Khorne rewards magic players.
I think Khorne would be, if we got enough skulls out of it, he'd be happy enough. He'd turn a blind eye.
Is there anything else you want to add to this discussion? Again, this book is so robust that we could be talking for hours and hours and hours about mortals, demons, wrath, marking things like the slaves to darkness and bringing them into Khorne. We talked a little bit about the Beasts of Chaos and marking those guys. And, there's just a lot of stuff you can do with this book. So it's almost like you could play this book for years because you can just keep optimizing and changing your list and keeping it fresh to the meta.
Oh, exactly. And that's the thing. That's the beauty of Khorne. There's so many different builds. Like, I've honestly got about 8 or 9 different Khorne armies, just ranging from everything. I've got about 15,000 points worth of Khorne, and I could play it all. Like, it is, you could play Khorne forever, and as you say, change your list every year and have something totally different. Khorne is awesome like that, and nothing's wrong. Nothing's weak. There we go.
By the way, I forgot to wear my hat.
I thought of that when we first started, then I forgot about it.
I should have worn my hat. It's my favorite band. Cool. So is there any you want to shout out, any places that people want to find and talk Khorne with you? Anyone
I'm pretty big on the Blades of Khorne page. I'm not a real big computer guy, as you've found out quite painfully over the last couple of days. But yeah, I'm on Facebook a bit. I'm always happy to talk Khorne. Send me a message, even throw it up there. As I said, I'm always on the Blades of Khorne page there, and I'm pretty active there. But yeah, always happy to talk Khorne.
Awesome, Tyler. It's an absolute pleasure. Enjoy your icebreaker for breakfast. I can't wait for the tournament scene to kick back off. Hopefully I see you in the near future. I think Khorne's got a lot of good legs. I think the way we need to re-look at Khorne and think about how we handle the new change in the meta. The meta has changed so quickly over the last 12 to 15 months with just the pure rate of battle tomes that come out in 2019, come out fast start 2020 as well. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. We know Gargants are coming. We know Luminet's coming. We know General's Handbook with new points. Maybe new scenarios are coming. So I think it's a good time to revisit and think about your list differently and think about what it might look like in the new meta and how you might respond to Crowe, OBR. Just so many new challenges that are now on the table. And it is truly a scissor, paper, rock meta right now.
Yeah, exactly. And we got so many options. We've definitely got the tools out there to deal with the new meta. It's just a matter of sitting down and getting it going. And I think once this virus is over and everyone can getting a few tournaments under the belt, seeing what's working, it won't take long for Khorne to be back up there again. And
the good news is the Games Workshop website is now open in most countries. So you go fulfill and go build some new models and go prepare. Tyler, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much once again. If you want to talk Khorne, I know there's a lot of questions we couldn't unfortunately capture. I know some questions had around like stacking of Blood Secretors and some different particular battalions. But I would encourage you to go check out the Facebook page for Khorne. A quick Google search, you'd probably find it in, or just a Facebook search, you'd find it. Go join
exactly.
it.
And so just drop me a PM either. Like, happy to talk to anyone.
Sweet. Tyler, thanks very much, guys. If you enjoyed this show, again, hashtag like, subscribe, smash it. Join the Discord if you want to talk Warhammer with us. Tyler, let's close it out properly. Thank you very much once again. Don't forget to roll your triumph. See you all and then very soon.
Thank you very much.